1 2 1 2, man. It's the one and only DJ Chase, man. 2026. I told y'all, man, bigger and better. We got a fire interview. This one's gonna be educational. So if you miss it, you on your own. Once again, you know I've been working. You know I've been cooking. But with that being said, let's get into our sponsors first. Make sure you download that DJ Chase Radio mobile app, man. Your iPhone, your Android. The new website, rapmarkets.com, coming soon. Podcast directory, user promo code DJ Chase. Get 20% off. Get in touch with podcasts such as myself. Get a real feedback from podcasters, interviews, all of that. And Groover, the hottest platform to get in touch with playlist curators. Get real feedback from real people, not bots. But today we have a really special guest today, and I'm honored to be in his graces. With that being said, the one and only DJ, author, music industry impresario, Amani Roberts in the building. How you doing today, brother?
I'm doing well, DJ Chase. Thanks for having me. That's a great intro.
Yes,
I got to take you on the road with me.
Yeah, listen. I'm with it. For sure. So, if people don't know you, man, they're going to get to know you today, especially my young, I have a younger audience, they learning, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. My audience learns, you know what I'm saying? And I'm big on music education. I'm big on knowledge and things like that. And, you have a lot of game and a lot of jewels to give. So I want to go over that. But before we get started on that, I want to talk about your background. Mm-hmm. So first of all, where you from?
From the D.C. area. So grew up in Maryland, Silver Spring, Maryland, went to Howard University, so D.C.
Love it. So what was D.C. like? Would you consider yourself a 80s baby, 90s baby, or 2000s baby?
I'd say an 80s baby. 80s baby for sure. Yeah.
80s. Got you. And what was Chocolate City like for you?
Chocolate City. A lot of go-go music. Yeah. We had good sports teams back in the day. Good. You got to get your dish with the salt, pepper, mambo sauce, all sorts of things. So it was cool. Great experience growing up in that area. Can't lie.
Love it. Now, as you know, that time in the 80s especially, you had like school days. You had so many different things that affected black music and black enterprise, especially coming from the Howard. There's only one HBCU, as they say, so there's Howard. So with that being said,
say it again.
Yes, sir. So how did that DC, that renaissance, I would say, from disco to that, how did that affect you growing up?
Especially at Howard, we got to see things early on. Like we got to see Biggie before he got to be really big. He was on the yard for Homecoming. Even later, late 90s, we got to see Usher before he got big. So we were kind of at the early stages of when we see these breaking artists because they always come through Howard to perform, either at Homecoming or in the spring. So we were fortunate enough to experience a lot of music artists early on, and then there's the culture and, the university. You got lots of people that went there that are doing big things in the world. And so it was just a great place to be in and a great environment to learn in.
Love it. And then with that being said, Mr. Roberts, so at what point, let me ask you a question. Were your parents involved? Because, once again, I always ask this because, a lot of people correlate our parents, because even me, my dad was a DJ. So, were your parents involved in entertainment, anything like that?
Not specifically in entertainment, but education, yeah. Yes, my dad, he was actually a professor at Howard, so that's where I learned the educational importance and the dedication and ethics there. So, that's the part that he was involved in.
Love it. And what made you become a DJ?
Well, at Howard, there was this club in D.C. called Quigley's, and DJ Bismarcky was there. And I saw him one night, and he played this amazing set for 3 hours. In the middle of it, he dropped all these TV theme show songs, and we were all singing along to shows. It could be The Cosby Show, Golden Girls, Knight Rider, Miami Vice, all these shows here. And he played the theme songs from them, and I was like, I want to do that. So at first, I didn't think it was a legitimate career. It took me many years to figure out it was, but that's when I decided I wanted to be a DJ, when I saw him at Quigley's.
Love it. So now, your background, you studied music, you were studious, you have a degree in music, from Berklee College of Music. Do you feel like, that, because I would say like this, learning music is different than being a savant in a sense, you know what I'm saying? Do you feel like learning music helped you or hindered you in a structural sense?
Yeah, and so my main focus was the music business. And so I would say learning the music business will help you tremendously because if we're artists, whether or not you're a singer, rapper, you're a producer, you got to know the business side because you need money. You got to follow your money. And so I think it always helps. And I'm always learning. I learn new things every day. And I think it just helps you tremendously to always continue to be a learner too.
Love it, love it. And touring and doing things in your journey, you know what I'm saying? How do you feel about the transition of music from CDs, cassette tapes, vinyl to streaming to AI? How do you feel about the AI transition that we're going through right
Yeah.
now?
Yeah, AI, that's a big issue. I will say this, like AI, when used properly, it can be a great tool for artists. It can help you get a reference track. It can help you kind of work on your lyrics. But I don't think I'm old school when I say this, but I really feel like there's nothing that's going to replace you inside an intimate venue singing your songs or singing your songs and the imperfections, like whether or not you go off key unintentionally for a verse, or you kind of slip up, but then you kind of bring it right back. Like those are things that AI can't really do because you have to train it to do that and you want it to be perfect. So I think the beauty for live performances is in the imperfections, and I just don't see how AI can duplicate that. Plus, we don't really want to. Most people want to see an actual person. They don't want to see an avatar or things
Yeah,
like that. So that's kind of my opinion.
yeah.
But when you look at like streaming and all those kind of revenue sources like AI, and we've already seen AI artists are kind of dominating some of the streaming categories, taking away potential money from artists. But generally speaking, streaming is not where artists make money nowadays. The payout is very low unless you're part of the top 1%. So you really have to focus on growing your communities and touring and doing some other things like merch and things to really monetize consistently.
Love it. And I thank you for that answer so much. So I want to talk about something, right? Your book, right? You're an author.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, I didn't want to get too much on the music background. I want to talk about the book here. So, I'm a huge George Clinton Parliament. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's James Brown, New Birth. You know what I'm saying? I was raised on that. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? So
Yeah.
this book, The Quiet Storm, I looked at the background of it. I've been studying it for a week. I've been trying to like get some good questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
So with The Quiet Storm, it's based on like Black R&B history and Black music. Is that kind of what it's going towards?
Yeah. Black R&B groups starting from the,
Yes,
the, the 50s all the way to the 2000s. Correct.
correct. And what inspired this book?
Yeah, yeah. Great question. Growing up at Howard in DC, we had this show called The Quiet Storm. It was love songs and slow jams. I'm a slow jam guy. I love a good ballad. I love to dedicate a good ballad to any young lady that I'm talking to. So that was where I first fell in love with like Quiet Storm, slow jams, all that. As I was at Berklee College of Music doing my master's degree, my thesis, I had two choices. I could do it on the disappearance of black R&B groups, or I could do it on why there are no longer any saxophone solos in
Mm,
songs.
mm.
I didn't really want to go down a Kenny G rabbit hole, so I decided on the groups,
Yes, sir.
and I love it because it's we groups, and when I say we, I'm talking about R&B fans and R&B groups, like to come up in the 50s, 60s, 70s, dominating. Yeah, groups like the Isley Brothers, who only group in history to have hits in six different decades,
Yeah.
and then you go through in the 90s where you had a Boys to Men, you had a TLC, you had a SWV, In Vogue, Tony, all these groups that were dominating the main radio airplay. They weren't just dominating the R&B charts; they were dominating the Billboard Hot 100. And to see that rise, and then you get to when Destiny's Child went solo in the mid 2000s, and then have it fall off so suddenly. What happened? Why did that happen? Why is it that K-pop groups nowadays can
Hmm.
still do well and succeed? Now,
Yeah.
side note, they are following the R&B group playbook.
Yeah.
Why can't R&B groups come back and do things that they used to do? So that was just my research took me through it. I became more passionate about it. Then we put out the book 4.5 years, and I love the topic. And I love the conversation around it. So that was the inspiration and a little bit of the process.
Yeah, and it also too is a very hefty book, as I should say. So with
Yes,
that,
it's
so with
thick.
that, so with that being said,
It's thick.
what was the research process like? Coming up with your book. You know what I'm saying? It's very hefty. So what was the research process like? Making a
Yeah.
book.
Yeah, so we had like these four different criteria for a group to make the top 10 or 11 per decade. It was album sales, Grammy Awards and nominations, Billboard Hot 100 hits, and then notable performances. I include notable performances because in the 50s, 60s, and a little bit in the 70s, it was not very common for you to see R&B groups on The Tonight Show on TV or at the Kennedy Center or these major venues. Like, they weren't really allowed to play there.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the groups came up through the Chitlin circuit in the South and Midwest, and that's how they got to be big. So that was the 4 criteria. I had my students from where I teach at Cal State University of Fullerton. They helped me with the research over several years. We did research, and we were able to break down a list of the top 10 or 11 per decade. Sometimes the decades were so thick with groups that were so good that there's honorable mention, and then we list them out in alphabetical order, so they're not listed in any order or whatever. It's just alphabetical per decade. Their top 100 Billboard hits, Grammy nominations, Grammy wins, my favorite songs. Then I add in the my favorite samples, because what you see nowadays, particularly, is all these newer artists are sampling these R&B groups, and some of the people who are unaware, I don't want to say uneducated, I'll say they're unaware, like, no, this is not an original song. They are sampling this beat, this rhythm, these lyrics from this group. And so that's kind of composes each chapter. Then at the end, I talk about what happened, why did they disappear, and I make a little prediction of what will happen next.
I love it, love it. So I want to ask you this, right? Now, you have DC, right, as a DJ. What is your go-to record as a DJ?
Well, it depends what environment I'm in, but if I'm trying to represent DC,
let's get it.
I will always sneak in some go-go music, Sardines, you know.
I was gonna ask. I was gonna ask.
Yes,
I was gonna ask Chuck Brown on Sardines.
Yes.
I was gonna ask,
Sardines
but I didn't want to say nothing.
Chuck Brown will be too. Like, we need some money.
Yeah.
I like that one by Chuck Brown. We need some money. Go. I'll even do Pieces of Me.
Yeah.
I think it's Rarest. I think did that one. And so I'll always, set of just to represent DC.
Yeah.
And then we go from there. But that's what Chuck Brown, of course, Godfather of Go. So
yes.
He's always mixed in there. And Sardines is a popular one too.
Yeah.
Of course, you have EU doing the Bud. That's more commercial, so you might sneak that in too. But I try to represent and sneak it in wherever I can.
Yeah. Love it. So the reason I asked that, right, from the book question was because of this, right? Being that you have so much business knowledge, and a lot of these groups and a lot of these legends and icons that got they change history literally, and they really didn't get their just due as far as money. You know what I'm saying? As far as copyrights, as far as trademarks, as far as publishing, as far as all the good stuff that comes with this business, right? So in today's climate, do you feel like an artist should be signed or should they be independent?
It depends on what the artist's goal is. There are some benefits to being signed, but I'm of the belief that you want to do whatever you can to hold on to as much of your intellectual property as possible. When the music industry, that's primarily like your publishing revenue, because that's long money. That money is going to pay you for years to come, and then you want to get some of the master recording also. Now, if you are a goal to you really want to have radio hits and you need the record labels to kind of push you and use their incredible engine to get you radio hits and sales, then you might have to sign with the label for a certain amount of time, get a reversion clause so that your masters revert back to you after certain years. Or sometimes you can do a share and then get the rest back later. So I'm pro artist. It depends on the artist's goal. It will take you longer if you go independent. It's not a quick path. But if you are strong enough and you have a strong enough community, you can be very successful as an independent. But you can also just pick some of the label services. Maybe you're independent, but you want to partner with the label for their marketing arm or their distribution. That's becoming more and more common. So I think a healthy mix is good, but I always say it's best to try to hold on to as much of your intellectual property as possible, because that's where the labels make the money, because they just hold on to it and they can use that to grow and to exploit.
Love it. And I want to ask you this too, Mr. Roberts, as well. When was your favorite time in music? Like, was it the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s, the 20s now? When was or the 70s, even 60s or 70s? When was your favorite time of music?
I'm biased to the 90s. I just think that the groups that were in the 90s.
I agree.
And even the singular artists, big Mariah Carey fan, Mary J. Blige, they blew up in the 90s, and they just went through all the decade. Tevin Campbell, all these artists. And that's just, every genre. Alanis Morissette and rock genre, she's amazing. Shania Twain, all these artists. Just the 90s were just like an amazing time for music. And then I'd say number two would be the 70s. 70s, they were bringing them too. So I would say that too.
Love it. Now, how important is it? I do radio. I'm a radio guy all day. There was a time when artists said they didn't need a radio or a DJ. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I remember, I know you remember that time.
Hmm.
How important is radio versus streaming?
I think radio is supremely important because where we are today, radio's still free. You get it in your car. You can go anywhere, and you don't have to pay for it. So radio is changing though. Whereas radio used to break the hits before, nowadays the hits might go off on a TikTok or Spotify first, and then the radio will play it. But radio is a great promotional avenue. You can sit down with someone like yourself live on radio, give an interview. So the artists still do promo tours on radio, so it ain't
Yes, they
going
do.
away. So radio is still extremely important. It's just it's changed. You don't hear like breaking new music most of the time on radio. It hits streaming first. So it's just kind of like, it's evolved and it's different now than how it's used. But radio is still important.
Love it. And with that being said, Mr. Roberts as well too, I want to ask you this, and please don't mind me calling you Mr. Roberts. I'm
It's
just
fine.
honored. It's okay,
It's
guys.
fine.
I know you're like, why is he calling me that? No, because what it is a lot of artists today, they feel like the 70s, the 60s, the 80s, they were real stars, right? And I run into, even myself, I run into a lot of artists that feel like social media makes them a star. But when it comes time to the show, they couldn't sell a fruit basket in the show. You know what I'm saying? So how important is it to understand the difference between a social media celebrity or artist and real artists, such as, like I said, the Blackbirds, the Gap Band? Those are real celebrities that can sell shows. How important is that to know the
Yes,
difference? Excuse me.
Charlie Wilson and the Gap Band. Woo.
Yes.
So I think you have these TikTok artists that they have a song that'll go off on TikTok, and that's good because then they get the promotion, they get the acknowledgement. But it all comes back to we got to see you in person. You got to see you live. We have to see you how you perform, how you can work a room. Can you fill a room? If you're from Philadelphia, can you fill a room in Detroit, St. Louis, Chicago? You go out west to Vegas. Like, how strong is your community? Because online is something else. Like in the DJ world, we have a whole bunch of bedroom DJs. They love to DJ from their bedroom and do this and stream or whatever. But how can you read a crowd? How can you work a room? How can you market and sell out venues, not stadiums, clubs, maybe arenas, amphitheaters? So social media artists are good for where they are, but to really take that next step, you have to be able to perform live consistently, be able to fill a room, and be able to market so that you can inspire people to go from following you on social media to buying tickets to your show and buying merch at your show. And I think that takes dedication, that takes a lot of marketing skills, and it's not easy. And so I think that's what weeds out some of the social media artists from the true artists, because once they figure out how hard it is, they say, you know what, forget this. I'm just going to go back and just do my social media thing. Or they get signed to a label. The label's expecting them to fill rooms, sell records, and they only have one or two hits and can't perform. That's an issue.
Love it, love it. And I had a question on my partner, one of my artists. Shout out to my guy Catchafelli. He had a question, so I gave him a choice. I let him pick a question that he wanted me to ask you. So he wanted to ask, how important is it to learn the music business as a rapper or hip hop artist compared to any other genre in music?
I would say it's the most important thing you can do. I think now with the music business as a rapper, hip hop artist, you have to know the publishing. You got to know, first of all, you got to have a little legal expertise because rappers and hip hop artists, we sample so much. You sample so much, you have to know what's allowed, what's not allowed, how to get things cleared. You have to know that, okay, what's sync licensing? If I'm rapping or I got a beat or I got a lyric or a song, how can I get that into a movie or a TV show so that I can make that kind of money? And so there's so many different aspects, particularly for hip hop and rap, that they just need to learn because most of our hip hop and rap stars did not grow up in the music business. If you compare that genre to like pop stars and country stars, they might have grown up in the music business, so they have the fortunate access to family members, close friends who are in the business who can kind of guide them the right way. Say, no, don't give away your publishing. Keep that. Work with this songwriter. Make sure you sign up for a PRO, either ASCAP, BMI, or CSAC. Like a lot of that stuff is kind of they're born into. I don't want to say born into privilege, but they're born into that. Whereas hip hop, we kind of like this is the first generation of stars, so to speak. Like now we're going to start to see sons and daughters of hip hop stars come into the music industry too. So that's like second generation. But most of the stars now are like first generation. So we have a lot of catching up to do. And I think that it's just so important. And I encourage people to invest in your education. Like, it's okay to invest and buy, like, we like our cars, our houses, our clothes, but spend a little money on learning, consistency learning, because it's going to help you make more money in the long run. And that's what I'm very passionate about, particularly our black and brown artists, because education is a little bit gated. So I try to take down the gates, lower the knowledge, or shrink the knowledge gap, and really share with them, this is what you need to know. This is what you need to do. You need to go to these conventions. You need to read these books, and you just need to stay learning, because if you're learning and you're aware, you might catch something when a producer or a label tries to pull something over on you, or tries to maybe include some writing in a contract that you say, oh, no, what's that about? Tell me about that. Take that out.
Yeah.
And so I think it's crucial. It's most important for that kind of genre of music and that kind of status and type of people.
Love it, Mr. Roberts. Thank you for that answer. Thank you so much. And I want to ask you this before we get out of here. I ain't going to take too much of your time. I definitely want to do a two-parter with this one. So with that, for sure. So with that being said, out of all the things that you learned, research in the book, because I'm very sure there's probably a lot of things that you didn't know. What is one thing that surprised you doing research and writing this book? What is one group and one thing that surprised you writing this book?
Okay, I already mentioned the fact about the Isley Brothers, so that's already given. I'm going to give you two more.
Okay.
The Jackson 5 never won a Grammy. That was one thing that they never won a Grammy.
Wow, I didn't know that. Wow,
that shocked me.
Okay.
Number 2, In Vogue in the 90s, never had a Billboard Hot 100 #1 song. They always came in second. And so those are just two facts that just really, really shocked me, in addition to the Isley Brothers, that, there was so much competition and so much talent out during that time. And so those are two things that I always talk about. There's another story. Maybe for part 2, ask me about the story behind the song "Midnight Train to Georgia" from Gladys Knight and the Pips. That story is like, whoa.
Got you.
Yeah. Also, Gladys Knight she was the one that discovered on the Chitlin circuit on the road. She discovered the Jackson 5 and called up Barry Gordy and said, "You need to sign this group."
You learn something new every day. Now, one thing I didn't know, I never knew the Jackson 5 never won a Grammy. That's crazy.
Never won a Grammy. Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah. So you remember when Michael Jackson released "Off the Wall"?
Yeah,
he didn't get any nominated or win a Grammy then either, and so it was a lot of the bitterness or just anger towards the Grammy because of what happened to Jackson 5, then "Off the Wall," but finally for Thriller.
So that's why he went. That's why, basically, long story short, he went hard on Thriller.
Yeah. I mean, that was one of the reasons, but Quincy Jones pushed him too. So yeah.
Okay, wow. I would have never. That's crazy. Jackson 5 never won a Grammy is just like absurd, but it is what it is. Yeah. You know what? And I want to ask this too, Mr. Roberts. Is this right? You have so much knowledge, you have so much insight, and you're fighting for the smaller guy. You're fighting for the ones behind the gate. You know what I'm saying? What is one piece of advice that you would give anyone getting into the music business today?
As much as you are creating music and producing and releasing music, you need to be learning the same amount of information, because it's changing. What was happening in AI 3 months ago is very different from what's happening now. 3 months ago, AI companies hadn't really signed on with some of the major labels. Now they've kind of signed on with some of the major labels and are working with them. So it's changing fast. If we look up in July, August, it's going to have changed again. So as much as you're producing content, music, and releasing it, you need to be learning the same amount of information about the industry so you can stay aware. Because knowledge is power.
Indeed. And on that note, Mr. Roberts, my brother, Amani Roberts experience, can you tell the people where can they find you, get a consultation? Because he's expensive, guys. He's charging.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Investment.
Great investment. Great investment.
Yes, great investment.
You know what I'm saying? Like I said, I got some good friends. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, Mr. Roberts, where can people find you? Where can people contact you for, even getting the book? Where can they reach you? Excuse me.
So my website is amaniexperience.com. I recommend anyone who's listening who's an artist or wants to talk to me, I offer a free call to anyone. AmaniExperience.com/call. And that's A like Apple, M like Mary, A like Apple, N like Nancy, I, and experience, oneword.com. Call, hop on the phone, or Zoom, we can chat. I can talk to you about where you are, where you want to go. Then if you want the book, you can also find the book on my website too. It's AmaniExperience.com/book. So go to the website. That's where you can get it all.
Love it, love it. Mr. Amani Roberts in the building. Once again, man, that book, The Quiet Storm, is on all book platforms. I didn't get my autographed copy. I'm going to rob him. So with that being said, once again, man, WDJCDB, DJ Chase Radio. We out of here, man. Spotify podcast, Apple podcast, and YouTube DJ Chase TV. Download that DJ Chase Radio mobile app, man. iPhone, Android, and we are out of here. Yeah.